bead weaving is easy. The only things that you have to do your bead weaving are your thread, your needles, some kind of beading surface, scissors, and beads. Not a lot of stuff. But there are a whole lot of additional optional things that you can use, and I'm going to talk over some of those right now. The first optional thing is thread conditioner. And thread conditioner is something that you used. It was used a lot more back when we were using the threads like the Nymo, or the 1G, or the Silamide, those kinds of things. What thread conditioner is something that you apply to the surface of your thread, and it makes it a little slicker. It strengthens it a little bit, and it makes it a little slicker. And there's several different products on the market for these. The first and one that I actually no longer have because I've gone to this instead is the traditional thing is beeswax. And so a bar of beeswax, yellow solid beeswax, is what I originally used to use. The downsides of the beeswax is it's a little sticky, so it can get your fingers can get just a little bit of sticky, not a lot, just a little tacky is really kind of it. And then because it is a natural product, it can actually go rancid on you over time. Now, I personally never had that happen, but I've heard of other people having it go rancid on them. They then came out with, this is the next generation thing, and this is a synthetic wax that they have made. And so it does not get you sticky, and it does not go rancid on you. And the way you apply it is really simple. You'll take your length of thread, and you just put your thumb down over it on top of the wax, and you just pull. And it just adds a fine coating of this wax on your thread. I personally do not use any kind of wax on my thread unless my thread is giving me lots of tangle issues. If you're having lots of tangle issues, if you have a piece that's being really rambunctious, going with one of these thread conditioners can help that out and help it keep from happening. The other kind of thread conditioner is called Thread Heaven, and it comes in these little blue boxes. And you would apply it just the same way. It's just a smaller surface where you're just putting your finger over it and passing it through. And I usually pass it through a couple of times, and then I will just kind of take my finger and run it along the thread to get off any excess. So the thing is, this was really intended for thread. The question is whether you use it for fireline and wildfire. And the answer is, it depends on who you talk to. Some people say, yes, do use it with fireline. I personally don't like to use it with fireline unless I've got one of those rambunctious threads that I'm really kind of fighting, because it does not soak into the fireline. It is just a coating on the outside. Now, if you're using an actual thread, then it actually soaks into the thread, and so it's not as big a deal. But because it sits on the outside of the fireline, what can happen as you're working with your beadwork is you get little lumps of the white stuff showing on the outside of the beads. And of course, because it's a waterproof product, the fireline is, really all you have to do to get rid of it is run your piece under hot water and melt it off. But my question is, if you're going to have to go to all that trouble, why would you do it in the first place? So I personally am not a fireline conditioner, but try it because it may make a huge difference for you. So then some of the other tools that I actually really like to use are bead scoops. Bead scoops are make your life much easier as you're trying to pick up after yourself with beads. And so let's say you poured out a pile of beads, and now you need to clean up to make dinner because you've been working on the dining room table, and so you need to clean off your surface. And traditionally I would just sit there and pinch my beads back into the tube or into the bag or whatever. But these scoops make a world of difference. And so with the scoops, you can get under it, get a whole huge amount of beads in here, and then because it's a triangle, you'll pour it right into the tube or the bag or wherever you're using it. So the triangles is one option. The triangles also work nicely if you're using multiple kinds of beads. Some people like to separate out their beads in these triangles. They're super cheap. This is a bead scoop that I also use quite a bit because I'm able to use the tip and kind of separate out my beads. You know how the beads kind of cross-pollinate sometimes? You've got your 8s and your 15s and your 11s and different colors, and you end up with one big huge bead pile mess, and I'm too ADD to let that just sit there like that. So I take my little scoop and I separate them out into their little piles so that they're not cross-pollinating. I know. But then it's also a really effective tool to scoop those beads up, and then you've got this nice little funnel to funnel them into your tube. This particular tool is a 2-for. It's got just a real small scoop on the end to scoop up your beads, but the other benefit is that it's got some tweezers, fine tweezers here on the end, if you want a tool that works 2 different ways. So that's something else. I do actually really highly recommend that you get one of these 2 tools because it will make your life cleaning up and dealing with your beadwork much easier. So those are good ones to have. Something else that you frequently will need is a dowel. And you usually need dowels of different sizes because if you're working on a tubular project, the inner diameter of your tube is going to be different depending on what size beads you're making, how many beads around you started out with. And so you can go to your local craft store and get just, little plywood dowels that they sell really inexpensively. But you need all these different sizes, right? So what I have discovered is the most perfect dowel in the world is a set of knitting needles. Because then you've got a whole array of different sizes, and then if you just happen to knit, then you've got that ready for you to work on your next project too. So knitting needles are a great optional thing for you to use. Another great optional item are these little bobbins, and you will see me sometimes have these attached to my projects when I am moving from place to place. What I do is if you've got a thread that is coming off of your project and it's usually pretty long, if you just throw that in a bag or something, it's going to get all tangled up and knot on you, and then you're going to be mad and sad and say bad words. So the way to get around that is use one of these bobbins. And what I do is I take the needle off the end, although you can actually wind it with the needle on there too. It's just that the needle will stick out. And I take the end of my thread and I wind it around the center of one of these bobbins right up to where my project starts, and then this rounded part flips over, and there we go. Now that thread is secure, it is not going anywhere, and it's not going to get all tangled. So it's a good way to transport your projects. Last couple of things, tape measure, always a good thing to have, especially when you're trying to establish a bracelet or a necklace size and figure out your measurements for your piece. And then I always keep on hand a set of just general tools. So a flat nose pliers will help you break out any beads that you might need. Round nose pliers, less so. Wire cutters if you have a cutting emergency. And then the last thing that I keep is an awl. And this is an awl that has a super pointy point to it. And if you get a knot in your thread, an awl can help you kind of pick that knot out. So it's another great thing to use that way. You can also break out beads with a nice awl like this. But like I said, these are all just optional things, and really all you need are that needle, thread, beads, and a beading surface, scissors to cut your thread. That'll get you going. This is all the fun stuff that comes later.